Hello, everyone. Welcome to our workshop tonight. This is hiking safety for women. So if you are here for that workshop, you're in the right place. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Rebecca. I'm the founder of Hike Like a Woman. It is go time. I do want to say that going into safety, so I'm not a law enforcement personnel. I am not a therapist who's trained in like trauma. I'm just a woman who likes to hike. I'm a guide and I've been in the outdoor industry for quite a long time. So tonight's workshop, I'm sharing my experiences and my thoughts with you, but I recognize that we're all coming from different situations and from different backgrounds. And so I hope that everyone can just feel really comfortable sharing here, realizing that this is a really diverse group. Sound good? In tonight's webinar, my goal is to share with you a few ideas on how you can implement your own risk management strategies into your next hike, backpacking trip, snowshoe adventure, backcountry ski adventure. And my whole mission here at Hike Like a Woman is to help women explore with confidence. And I believe that once we are confident, then that actually helps us be safe out on the trails. So I'm here for you. I'm here to answer your questions, and I'm excited for tonight's workshop. Okay, so let's get real. In the comments below, I want to know, what is one thing that's keeping you off the trails? It might be one of these things. Is it wildlife? Maybe you're scared you're going to go around a corner and run into a grizzly bear. Maybe it's number two. Maybe you're a little bit scared, nervous about getting lost in the backcountry, or maybe it's number three. And we get asked this question a bunch, is like, what do I do about creepy people out there in the backcountry? So 1, 2, or 3, if you can identify with any one of those, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. I'm seeing a lot of creepy people. Copperheads. Oh, Australia, for sure. Bears. I think there's a lot of scary stuff in Australia. Awesome. Yeah, bears, creepy people, grizzlies, and creeps. Yes. Yes, wildlife, venomous snakes. Excellent. I love all of this discussion. Getting lost, yeah. Those are all like very legitimate things that keep us off the trails. So what I want to do is break it down a little bit further. So we talked a little bit about some of those things that might be keeping us off the trail. Just to make sure you're in this workshop is for you. You want to hike more, but sometimes you doubt yourself and your abilities. It's for you if you feel nervous thinking about all of the what ifs out there and you're not sure how to prepare for them. Maybe you're here because you just want to talk about how you're feeling and some of the fear that you have in the backcountry in a safe place with women who feel the same way. And that's what we've really tried to create here at Hike Like a Woman, is just an inclusive environment where women feel like they can talk about these things and not be judged or ridiculed by others because of the way they feel. Or maybe you're here just because you love outdoor education. Is anyone here because they love outdoor education? So which one are you? Do you tend to doubt yourself? Maybe you get a little nervous in the backcountry sometimes. Maybe you want to share how you feel in a safe place. Maybe you love outdoor education, or all of the above. I'm seeing lots of 5s, 1s, 2. Oh, we have a really good mix here. Excellent. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I am all of the above. I doubt myself. Even after decades and decades of outdoor adventure, I still doubt myself. Sometimes I feel nervous and unprepared. And often, even when I'm guiding trips with clients who are paying me a lot of money to guide them on trips, sometimes I still feel nervous and unprepared. I'm here because I need the support of women who feel like I do. And that's why one of the reasons I created Hike Like a Woman is I think we all need each other. And of course, I love outdoor education. And if you've been following Hike Like a Woman for a while, you've seen a little rebrand here in the past couple months. And now one of our big focus is on outdoor education, because I believe that the more education we have, the more confidence we have, and then we have our outdoor adventures are safer and they're more fun. I got to rewind and tell you a little background story here. So the real reason I'm here is because back in 2014, 2015, I don't remember. I think it was 2015. Does anyone remember 2015? It seems like it was so long ago, but really it wasn't that long ago. There was this movement and it was called Give It 100. And the goal with Give It 100 was to practice something for 100 days. So some people were hopping on this website and sharing stories about how they were like practicing the guitar every day for 100 days, or how they were running a mile every day for 100 days, or how they were doing 10 push-ups every day for 100 days. And I decided that I wanted to do this challenge. And I wanted to take 100 days and go for a hike every single day and see if I could just hike 100 consecutive days. Now, at the time I had a toddler and a baby. And so it's not like we were going out on like really extreme epic hikes. But what we were doing was learning a lot about how to hike and how to hike safely and how to hike together with just me and two young children that were completely dependent on me. So during those 100 days, I watched a person get beaten up at a really popular over drug money. And I saw this altercation take place, and I called the sheriff, and I did what any person would do. And I sat in the cab of my truck and I recorded it. And then I handed that footage off to the police officer. And that was a really scary experience for me and my children. We stumbled upon a mountain lion kill site where I could see a mountain lion had killed a deer carcass and then drug it off into the trees. And I know that that lion was just chowing down on that carcass as it was watching me and my children hike down the trails. I also had some experiences with some creeps out there that made me pretty nervous. And it was during those 100 days that I really learned to conquer my fear of just being outside in the backcountry alone and alone with my children. So that's really kind of the story behind when I became really interested in helping women feel safe and confident on the trails. So here's what happened during those 100 days of hiking. My children were super happy and they slept really well because every day we were hiking, we would hike for, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, and then we would come home and do the same thing the next day at a different trailhead. Are there any moms out there? If you're a mom, give me like a amen in the chat here. But sometimes when you're a mom and you have little ones at home, it is hard and it is just exhausting. But I felt like because we had such this strict schedule of hiking every single day, I felt like motherhood just wasn't that exhausting because we were so focused as a family when it came to getting out on the trails. My house stayed clean and tidy, which is a good thing. And we became really good at hiking. So we developed really awesome systems and processes that helped us just like get outside the door. But the biggest thing that happened during those 100 days is we became really brave and really bold. And I became really confident, but not complacent. And so I hope that when you finish this workshop with us tonight, I hope that maybe you'll feel a little more brave and a little more confident. All right, let's move on. I think that when it comes to safety and in the backcountry, really it comes down to one word. And this is one of my favorite words of all time. And that word is courage. I think that courage is just this awesome word. So I want you to tuck that word in the back of your minds and let's continue on. Everybody doing all right? Okay. So I'm going to grab a quick drink of water. I have so many different options to choose from on my desk, but I'm going to have a quick drink. And here's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about how to assess risk before you even start your hike. We're going to talk about a few things that I keep in my backpack that help keep me safe. I'm going to throw some safety tips at you, and we're going to go through some scenarios together. And then I'm going to talk about what to do when you're scared. And then we'll finish up answering any questions, giving you any support, and just talking together as a group. Sound good? All right. So risk. When we talk about safety, the word risk really pops up all the time. And I stole this definition from the internet, so thank you, Google. And let's look at the definition of risk. So risk is the possibility of loss or injury. I think a lot of us said in the earlier start when we started this workshop is that we were scared of like getting lost or getting injured out there or encountering dangerous wildlife. Well, I think the important thing to take out of this definition is this word right there, possibility. And so I believe that through education and experience, we can kind of reduce the possibility of risk, and then we'll be safer in the backcountry. Does anyone out there hike with a trip plan, or do you create a trip plan or a route plan before you head into the backcountry? I think one of the biggest ways to reduce that risk and that possibility of dangerous things happening is to always create a trip plan. And if you're in our Hiking for Absolute Beginners online class, you know that we spend a lot of time talking about trip plans. So when it comes to hiking, day hikes, backpacking trips, whatever, I think a plan is super important at helping us reduce risk. So I ask myself 10 questions before every hike. And it doesn't matter if I'm just headed out to like my local, like Pole Mountain, 15 minutes from town for a little hike after work, or if I'm headed out on a backpacking trip for 5 days. I always ask myself these 10 questions. Why am I going on this hike? What's my purpose? Where am I going? Who I'm going with? What's our goal? What is our schedule? What's the forecast? And when I think about forecast, I don't just think about what's the forecast in town, but what's the forecast going to be at the trailhead? And then what's the forecast going to be at the top of the mountain if I'm trying to bag a peak that day? I think about what I need to wear, what I need to pack. What's our plan? Like, how are we going to stay safe if like things just go south in a hurry? And then I think about who else needs to know our plan and how can I share that plan so that someone can help come and find us if we need some help out there. The two things, we can go into a lot of depth here with trip plans, but the two things that I really want to focus on for the sake of time and for this workshop, because I think they're probably two of the most important things, are what do I need to wear and what do I need to pack? So let's talk about those. Are you all familiar with the 10 essentials? Anyone out there who's kind of nerdy like me and geeks out over things like this? Yes, the 10 essentials. Whew, all right, Trisha, Desi, Erica, yes, Sarah, yep. Okay, so the 10 essentials are 10 things that are recommended that we always have with us. So they're navigation tools that you know how to use: sun protection, insulation, illumination, first aid supplies that aren't expired, and first aid supplies that you know how to use, something to create fire with, repair kit, nutrition, hydration, and emergency shelter. So when it comes to safety, I recommend that all of us carry the 10 essentials in our backpack. And you can find like small things. You don't have to like hike with a sleeping bag so you have insulation. Like we can really kind of make those very compact and light. But I would add that for women in the backcountry, there's a few extra essentials that we need to have. A few things I also have are my Garmin InReach, and that counts as my navigation tool. But what the InReach does is it allows me to transmit messages back and forth between somebody. And it also allows my husband or one of my employees at my store to see our route and see where we're going. I recommend that we always have a whistle with us. If you have an Osprey backpack, all Osprey backpacks have a whistle built into the sternum strap, and you might not know that, but that's kind of a cool tidbit of information about Osprey backpacks. So the whistle is built in. I recommend maybe a small knife, and that could be part of your repair kit or your tools. An emergency blanket, so those silver Mylar blankets, they're pretty awesome for like creating a shelter, keeping you warm, or they're really crinkly, so you can make some noise with those. And also, of course, like you can see one of those silver emergency blankets from far away, which would help search and rescue find you if you were lost or something like that. And then I carry bear spray if a threat exists. So if you live in grizzly country, so those of you up north there in Montana, you know, I carry bear spray when I go back to Bozeman and go hiking. And I also, if I'm hiking with a group, then we make sure that we have 2 sets of bear spray between the group, just so we have some redundancy there. Here in southeastern Wyoming, I don't tend to hike with bear spray unless I'm going to be alone and unless I feel like there's a really big bear threat. So right now in one of our state parks, they're seeing a lot of bear activity. So I'd probably take bear spray if I was headed there. Shauna has a great question about bear. This question actually came up last night too. I don't know that bear bells are super effective. They're good at making noise, but I don't know that the tone of the bell is the right tone to detract from a bear. There's a lot of debate and discussion in the outdoor industry about bear bells, so we'll follow up with that. Shauna, I'm going to do some research there. I have a friend that is really awesome, and when she's hiking, she says, "Hey bears, we don't have any tacos, or no tacos for you bears." And it's just really funny that she's hiking down the trail yelling about tacos. So yeah, I'll follow up with you about bear bells. That's a great question, Shauna. So those are the 10 essentials. Those are things that I add to my kit here in Southeastern Wyoming, realizing that I may have different threats here than what exists in grizzly bear country, or, down in Florida, you got like gators and all sorts of things that want to bite you and sting you and stuff. So anyway, those are my 10 essentials, 15 essentials. And then the other thing to think about when we're packing is the rule of thirds. And so I don't know if you know the rule of thirds, but it's something that they use a lot in search and rescue. And it basically says that a human can go 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter in a harsh climate, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So what I think is really interesting about the rule of thirds, especially when it comes to packing for a backpacking trip or a hiking trip, is how long we can actually go without food or water. And I'm not saying that you should not pack enough food or water filtration options and know where your water sources are. But I have a friend that would really, like, even on a day hike, she would pack enough food seriously that would be able to sustain me for a week if I were lost. And her biggest fear was running out of food. So I think that those fears are very like legitimate, but knowing the rule of thirds, it might affect how you pack and what you put in your 10 essentials kit. Now that you know the 10 essentials or the 15th, how does that change your thoughts on packing? So I just love to hear what you think and what you're thinking about in the comments here. And we'll pause for just a quick second. Yeah, it's interesting. I like what Brenda said about less food, more water. And one of the things, I was actually guiding a backpacking trip once, and so I was out in the backcountry, and I had a group of 10 women with me and my co-guide, and we had a big gravity fed water filter for the group, our hike, the first night of our trip. So we still had 2-3 days to go before the trip ended, and our water filter was broken, and we were concerned about our fuel usage because we had only packed the amount of fuel that we needed to cook our meals. So we didn't have like an abundance of water so that we could boil extra water. So we didn't have an abundance of water or an abundance of fuel. But we did have some aqua mira. So aqua mira is some drops you could drop in your water to help purify it and take out all the gross, nasty viruses and bacteria. And we had a SteriPen. So then for the rest of the trip, we had to use the SteriPen, which is filters water through a UV light, and the aqua mira, and then whatever fuel we could spare for boiling water. And I found that because I had some redundancy there with my water filtration, it, like, the whole group learned a really important lesson about making sure that when it comes to water, you not only have like your primary water filtration source, but always also a backup and then a contingency. So we had 3 sources. Yeah. Let's see some questions out there. Marie France asks about the safety of a SteriPen. How reliable is it really? I had that same question when I first started using a SteriPen as well. And here in the Rockies, I find it to be super effective. The cool thing about the SteriPen is that it comes with a little filter so you can filter out all the gunk and then hit it with the UV light. And we have very clean water just because we're so high. So I think here in the Rockies, a SteriPen is fantastic. I have not used a SteriPen maybe in a place where the water might be more polluted or get more use. So I'm just not really sure, but I think that goes back to kind of where are you and what are your needs. But yeah, and Chandler, light long sleeves instead of sunscreen. Yeah, I've been using a sun shirt so far this summer because I'm getting old. No, not really. But yeah, and I really like a sun shirt. I found it to be really lightweight and really quick drying, but also provide some sun protection without having to use sunscreen. Because that anything that's kind of like water-based or heavy, that's heavy in your pack, and I need to have a pack light, right? Alternative to pesticide chemical bug repellent. Today I actually tried a all-natural bug spray from, I think it was like green or goo or some G word, and it didn't work. But that was just my like one experience with it. And so my friend had like a big old can of DEET, and then we were practically drinking it because the mosquitoes were so bad. So I would love to know if anyone has any alternatives to, DEET or Picard. I'd love to try out and do some experimenting. Awesome. Okay, so once we know the rule of thirds, then yeah, it definitely kind of changes things, right? Oh yeah, and Lauren brings up a really good question about knowing where hunting is allowed and hunting season. An orange safety vest, absolutely, especially if you're in an area where there's a lot of hunting. We'll talk about that. Maybe we'll post a YouTube video about safe hiking during hunting season. Awesome. And cedar oil. Leslie says cedar oil. Okay, cool. We're going to try it. All right. So we already kind of talked about this. What do you consider an essential safety item that's always in your pack? So if you have something that we perhaps haven't mentioned before, go ahead and drop it in the comments. Maybe it'll help somebody else think of something else that they should have in their pack for the type of hiking that they do. EpiPen, yeah, an EpiPen. Totally. We're going to make a note of ticks there. And how's everybody feeling? Y'all feeling good? Feeling like you're getting something out of this, and this conversation is actually really fantastic. So I hope you can all see the chat there. Awesome. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk a little bit about is some of the threats that we can encounter in the backcountry. When it comes to threats, I like to think like, what is this thing that scares me a little bit, but what can I do about it? Okay, so we're going to go into some scenarios and some examples here. So I want to think about what's a threat. So for this example, we're going to say that this threat is like a creepy person out on the trails, right? So a lot of you said one of the things I'm scared about is creepy people out on the trails. So we'll say this threat for this scenario is creepy people on the trails. So then I like to think, okay, I'm a little bit scared of running into a creepy person on the trails. But what can I do about it? So there's a couple things I can do so I can be a little more confident and maybe not be so nervous about encountering something like that. So one thing I could do is I think that every woman should take a self-defense class, and we're going to look into how we could maybe do one online, or if you can find someone in your local area who can teach you a self-defense class specifically for women. So that's a good thing to know. So creepy people on the trail. I can take a self-defense class. I can learn how to defend myself. I can also learn how to trust my gut. I think a lot of times, especially as women, we just have this intuition. We know when something doesn't feel right. We know when something doesn't look right. When I was hiking with my kids and there was the mountain lion kill site, I knew that something was weird before we even got to the kill site. I could just feel something was off, right? I have a hard time trusting my gut. I don't know if anyone out there has a hard time, but I like to like have my goal and know where I'm going and not have anything get in the way of the adventure that I have planned. So sometimes I have to really focus on slowing down and learning to trust my gut. You can carry mace. Another thing we could do to maybe alleviate this threat would be to hike on busy, well-used trails. Maybe we won't have that pristine experience that we want in the backcountry, but maybe we'll feel a little more safe when we know that all we got to do is scream and there's going to be someone who can hear it. So once we identify the threat, right, then there's things we can do. And if we do those things, then we're going to start to feel a little bit more confident, right? Yeah. So getting some questions here. Some of us said that we're a little bit scared of getting lost. So if you are scared of getting lost, or if you see getting lost as a threat, I would love to know. Let's think about some things we can do to help eliminate that threat or help reduce that threat. So if you're a little nervous about getting lost, drop a comment and let me know a few things that you can do so that you can feel confident that you're not going to get lost on your next hike. Yeah, navigation skills, learning how to read map and compass, study your trail map, plan your map around ahead of time. Yes, learn how to use an app. One tip that I have for getting lost is I think it's really important to hike with a paper map, but sometimes I've been in situations where like the wind has literally blown a paper map out of my hand. So one thing that I always do is I take a paper map, but then I take a picture of that paper map. So then I have a picture of that map on my phone just in case I lose the map or the map gets destroyed or blown away. something like that. Lots of great tips there in the chat. Awesome. Okay. And navigation courses too are awesome. We have a lot of people who live in the Rockies. And I learned last night too that lightning is not just like a Rocky Mountain thing when you're on at high elevations, but lightning can be a significant threat in the backcountry. So let's talk about lightning. If you see lightning as a threat or severe weather or storms in your local area, what are a few ideas that you have about things that you can do so you can feel safe hiking if there's severe weather? Any thoughts? Go ahead and drop those in the comments. I will give it a few minutes here. Yeah, great comments. We talked about knowing the forecast, right? Watch the sky as you're hiking. Get to lower elevation, pay attention to the weather, get off a ridge. Absolutely. One thing that I always think about is what time of the day am I going to be hiking? Because here in the Rockies, we tend to get those afternoon thunderstorms rolling in. So I always try to get an early start, just like Mary said. Mary was reading my mind there. Get an early start and don't go on afternoon hikes. Yeah, get away from metal stuff like your trekking poles. Yeah, so basically like to alleviate or reduce the threat of lightning, I just see a lot of paying attention, a lot of planning, and a lot of knowing what to do if you're caught in a lightning storm. Yeah. All right. Yeah, the lightning stance. Perfect. And what is the lightning stance, right? That's a low crouch, isn't it? I'm not even, I actually need to brush up on my lightning knowledge here. I'm a little rusty. So awesome. Great discussion. Let's do one more. Let's talk about dehydration. Here it's getting to be summer. Even when I've been on guiding backcountry ski tours or teaching cross-country ski lessons, even in the winter in a snowy place, dehydration can be really, really significant. So if the threat is dehydration, what can you do about it? Any thoughts there? Because that's one of those things that were part of the 10 essentials, right? Hydration. We talked about water filtration. Yeah, Julie read my mind there with researching water sources on the trail. So looking at that map ahead of time, knowing where you can get some water, hydrate, prehydrate. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we can do to, help reduce the threat of dehydration. So, we're all unique and we all have different threats and different things that might make us a little nervous on the trails. I really appreciate this conversation because we all bring so much to the table here. So thank you for your comments. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about fear. We've talked about, what to pack. We've talked a little bit about some of the threats that we all exist and how to reduce those threats. But now let's talk about what happens when you actually are on the trail and your heart starts to pound a little bit and you're legit. I have too many high schoolers that work for me and they say legit all the time and you're scared. So I'm going to spend 2 minutes and I'm just going to talk to you about one of the most scary experiences that I've ever had in my life. And I'm going to talk to you about what happened to my body when this was happening. So if you see the slide there, I used to be in the Army. This picture was taken on one of my deployments to Iraq. And my job in the Army was as a public affairs officer. So one of my jobs was to take embedded reporters from all over, all sorts of media outlets, and to take them all over northern Iraq and help them get their stories. And if you look at this picture really, really closely, what you see on the hood of that Humvee is a New York Times reporter, and he is trying to take a picture of that Iraqi soldier there in that Humvee. If you look at that Humvee, that's an Iraqi soldier in that Humvee, and you see where his weapon is pointed? He has a loaded weapon pointed right at that reporter's abdomen. Now, my job was to make sure that these reporters were safe and their safety and security was up to me. And you can see that US soldier there kind of leaning, feeling a little nervous, right? And he's like, yo, bro, you better get off that Humvee because you just don't know what's going to happen. While this was going on, we were also in a really scary part of downtown Tikrit, Iraq. And it was really dangerous there. And so here I have this reporter that I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? Something really bad could happen if there's like one slip of the finger and that trigger gets pulled. And so I was terrified. I was so scared. I was scared for that reporter. I was scared of what could happen, and I was scared of the threat that was around me. So what happens when you experience fear? And we like that fear that I felt in Iraq is also like a similar feeling that I have felt in the backcountry too. So when we get scared, our respiration rate starts to increase. We kind of breathe a little heavy quickly. Our heart rate increases. For me, like my palms start to sweat, my armpits start to sweat. I start to sweat all over. Fear is like real. It's a real thing. And fear is just our body's response to what's going on. It's fight or flight. It is game on, right? Have you ever had a moment when you have just been so scared you didn't know whether you could move or not, or you just wanted to run and get out of there, right? Yeah. So what do you do when you're honestly super, super scared? So I want to talk through another scenario here really quickly. I want to give you a scenario and then I want to chat about it in the comments below. So let's say we're on a hike, we're all alone. We're 2 miles from the trailhead. We trip and it is a bad fall. We're like falling off a cliff. We are hurt really bad. We hit our knee on a rock, and all of a sudden our knee is just like this bloody mess that looks like hamburger, and we're in bad shape. We can barely walk. We're hurt. There's no one around. We don't have phone service. If this scenario were to happen to you, and for some of us, this is like our worst nightmare there, if this were to happen to you, knowing now what you know, what would you do if this were you? Let's drop a note in the comments, because by doing this, hopefully, if this scenario ever happens, heaven forbid, if it ever happens, then we might be a little more prepared with what to do. All right. Yeah. Use your whistle. Stay put. Be happy. I finally started using trekking poles, right? Yeah. Those trekking poles could really help you out. They could help you build a shelter. They might be able to help you hike out, and they might have prevented the fall in the first place. Assess, rest, use your whistle, open your first aid kit, look at your surroundings, stay put, wait for help, stabilize the injury first, stop the bleed. Yeah, right? There's so much we could do, but the trick is to not let that fear keep us from not doing anything. So I have some homework for you. And this is fun homework, and it's not graded, and you don't even have to do it if you don't want to do it. But when I'm putting together my trip plans, I like to think about what sort of risks exist in my local area. And this is kind of like the scenarios we did before. So I like to think, okay, what are 5 risks that could happen? When I was doing the 100 days of hiking with my kids, one of my risks was actually getting injured and losing responsiveness, and then having my toddler and my baby just alone in the backcountry, right? Because they were so little. So I thought about that scenario a lot and what I would do. So I want you to think about 5 risks that exist in your local area. Then I want you to think about what you're going to do if you encounter those risks. And I think that just by thinking about the risks that we may encounter and then writing them down, I think that just that exercise alone will really help us be prepared for the unexpected. And if you're in a hiking group, you can do this with your hiking group. If you have a friend that you like to hike with, maybe talk about it as you drive up to the trailhead or on your hike. But when you think about these risks that exist for you in your area, what I want you to do is take a picture of your notebook, take a picture of one of your risks and what you're going to do about it, and then tag us at Hike Like Woman, and I'll send you a cool sticker. Here's an example of one of my risks. So I'm thinking about a risk. I'm writing down what I can do. One of my risks or one of my fears in the backcountry is having a client getting really sick or really injured on a guided trip, injured to the point where I can't treat them with my limited wilderness first responder knowledge, but getting sick or injured and needing to be evacuated. So that's a real scary fear. That's a real fear that I have, is someone who joins me on a trip expecting to have an amazing time, and then they end up needing to be evacuated. So I think, okay, that's the risk. That's my fear. But what can I do about it? One of the things that I can do about it is making sure that I have good pre-trip meetings with my clients so they know what to expect. I can also make sure that all of our medical forms are up to date. I can, and that clients have been honest with their medical forms. I can also make sure that my marketing materials are really accurate. So usually we're at pretty high altitudes with my trips. And so I can always think, okay, you're going to be at altitude, and just be really transparent there. I can monitor my clients' health. I can do daily check-ins with them and make sure that they're doing all right and that they're feeling all right. We also require all of our guides, of course, to have their wilderness first responder, but I can make sure that everyone's up to date and everyone is practicing. And we're doing some rehearsals. We're rehearsing what if scenarios with my guide team. We're rehearsing our evac procedures. And then we're also rehearsing those procedures with our team back here at home so they know how they can help us. So practice, 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 practice. Sound good? I would love to see, I'm just curious, and I think it could really help out a lot of us if we all kind of share what's a risk out there and what we're feeling and what we can do about it. And you don't have to share it right now. Just pop on sometime, or even if you don't want to share it publicly, just share it with me. I'd love to just chat about it with you. Sound good? Karen has a question about altitude sickness. Any tips on what to do or what medicine to take? Yeah, this is a really big concern. And Karen, what I always recommend for altitude sickness is to start off slowly. So when you head to Colorado, maybe spend a couple days in Denver and then head to Rocky Mountain National Park after you've had some time to acclimate. I also think that food and hydration are really important at altitude. So making sure that you're eating healthy, eating good meals, and drinking plenty of water, getting some electrolytes in your body. You can try an electrolyte drink. Someone recommended something earlier. I like Noon for hydration. Hydration is really key. Avoiding alcohol. Alcohol will just make that altitude sickness worse. And just being really slow, being really gentle with your body, paying attention to how you feel. If you're on a hike and if you start to feel just gross, then just heading down and calling it a day. Anybody else have any altitude sickness remedies there? One thing, a lot of people don't know what altitude sickness feels like. So also being able to recognize the signs and symptoms of altitude sickness. And the best way I can describe it is altitude sickness for me feels like a really bad hangover. So you start to feel a really pounding headache. You start to feel a little nauseous. You feel pretty tired. I tend to get pretty altitude around 13,000 feet. So if I'm climbing a 14er, usually at 13,000 feet is when I start to feel pretty gross. And what I love to do is I grab like one of those goo packets or something that has a lot of protein, and I just squirt a whole goo in my mouth. And then that just kind of helps. I don't know, maybe there's something with protein and altitude sickness. So I hope that helps. We'll follow up. Maybe we'll do a video on altitude sickness. Mountain lion tips. Yes, mountain lions are totally freaky because those lions are hiding in the trees, and that they're watching you because they're everywhere, and they're sneaky little. Yeah, I was about to cuss. They're sneaky little things. So mountain lion tips, yes. I try not to hike solo at dawn and dusk. So if I'm going to be doing like a super early morning hike or kind of a late evening hike, I make sure I always have a buddy. Keep your kids close. Don't go to the website mountainlionattacks.com. Don't read that at all. Mountain lion attacks are actually pretty rare. And if mountain lions attack you, it's usually, from what I've learned, is because they're injured or they're sick. So yeah, staying big. If you want to fight a mountain lion, a lot of times if I'm hiking solo, even if it's not dawn or dusk, I just take trekking poles, because you can fight a lion with a trekking poles. I've heard you can punch them in the nose and they'll back off. I don't know. That's probably an old wives' tale. But the tricky thing about lions is they attack from the back. So it's hard. You don't see them coming. They're such amazing predators. One thing that I did with mountain lions was our Game and Fish hosted a class on bears, wolves, and mountain lions. And I attended that workshop, and I learned just a lot about mountain lion habitat, mountain lion behavior, and then just knowing kind of where they are and how they hunt really helped me be a lot more confident. So maybe see if you can find a class on mountain lions. Any more questions out there? So thanks so much. I really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.